The U.S. economy and housing market is faced with a crisis right now that people can't seem to understand and no one is talking about. And most importantly, no one's seen coming. Not until recently did Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell mention that people are trapped. They're trapped in their homes. They're locked in their homes. They can't get out. You see, people bought homes for over a decade with historical low interest rates because they left the rates too low for too long. You've heard me say that over and over and over again. They left the rates too low for too long, which is great that you got a low interest rate. The flip side of that is there's people right now that can't afford their own home. You see, millions of people bought homes from 2009 to 2022 because the interest rate stayed below 5.25%. And not until April of that same year, 2022, that interest rates began to rise. So from April of 2022 till October, 7 months, those interest rates doubled, nearly putting the housing market at 8%. During the meantime, though, before all of that, it allowed people to sell their home, put more homes on the market, build more homes. However, and unfortunately, those days are cut thin. Interesting enough, this put the brakes on the housing market. Home prices went up, interest rates went up, insurance is up, taxes are up, because everything is related to supply and demand, and things go up. When things go up, everything goes up. It seems to follow. However, there's fewer homes on the market. There's also fewer homes that have sold. In 2024 was the lowest year for home sales in 29 years. Less people bought homes, less homes were put on the market, less home buyers. So in other words, you make the adjustment in the interest rates to slow down the economy, and you do just that. It put the brakes on the economy. But what's got to shift? What's got to change? You see, millions of people can't afford to sell their home and move, right? You get all that because home prices have gone up, interest rates have gone up. But interesting enough, there's people that live in their current home and they say, Wayne, I couldn't afford the home that I live in right now at its current value. You see, it's not just the interest rates that go up. And that's why I always tell people, when your mortgage rate goes up, it's not because of your principal and interest balance. It's because of your taxes and your insurance. Now here's something I bet you didn't know. You see, insurance and taxes and all of that is connected to your property. Yes, tax assessors have access to the value of your home now. They're connected to the multiple listing service, which is the same database that real estate appraisers and all real estate agents use. So when you list your home for sale with any kind of real estate brokerage firm or anything such as that, it goes into the multiple listing service. Once it goes in there and it's sold, it's recorded. Once it's recorded, yes, city and county, parish, tax assessors see the value of your home. And that's what they go off of to increase your taxes. Not only is it your taxes, but yes, insurance agents, insurance companies, they all see that. They know what's wrong, what's happening, what claims were made, all of that on a property. And believe it or not, if there's been past claims on a property in the tune of 3 to 4 claims on a property, the insurance on that property will be more. You see, it's not only about you and your credit and your income, it's also about the property that you're about to buy. That's why I always tell people it's not a bad idea to get an insurance quote and check the taxes on the property. But you have to understand that some states have what they call exemption, where you're exempt from taxes on the first percentage, right? It also has to do with the elderly person or person living in the property that may be exempt from taxes or get a tax discount. You just have to know that what are your taxes going to be on that property. Don't just look at the amount that the current owner is paying. Now, there is another anchor that's keeping people from selling their property, and it makes it hard to sell your property whenever you have a home that has a roof that's, say, 20 to 25 years of age. I meet with folks all the time and they say, Wayne, I want to sell my home. However, I don't have the cash reserves to replace the roof. There's a couple things that you can do. Go with me here. You can contact a roofing company and ask them if they'll put a roof on your home, put a lien on it, and basically give you a loan, if you will, to replace that roof. There's roofing contractors that will do that. You can also state in the multiple listing service to whomever is going to buy the property that you're going to be replacing the roof. So you can replace the roof. Now, you may not have the cash, for example, to replace the roof, and you can also do this with central heat and air systems and lots of other things. You just have to be creative. That's why it's important to have a good real estate broker working for you if you're ever buying or selling on a piece of property, because that roof can be replaced and that cost can come out of the proceeds of the sale. So a new roof can be put on to a home after it's contracted within 10 days of it closing, and the money can come out of your escrow, out of your equity, if you will, placed in escrow and then paid to the roofing contractor. There's multiple ways to do it. You just have to know that just because you have a home that has an old roof, or just because you have a home that has a high interest rate, or just because you have a home that you don't have a whole lot of equity, or you have a lot of equity, you have a lot of credit, have a lot of debt, There's always ways to work around it for your benefit. But you know, the question is, what next? What options do homeowners have if they want to sell their home and move to another home? You see, the average household is carrying $33,000 in credit card debt, not to mention car loans, student loans. Some people have medical bills, some people have all of those. However, there is a way out. You see, millions of homeowners are equity rich, but they're cash strapped. They have equity in their home, but not a whole lot of cash funds to pay off debt. However, you can take the equity in your home, and it's like having cash to pay off your debt. All you have to do is get approved for a loan and tell the lender that, hey, I want to use the equity in my property to pay off any of my debts and all of my debts. So you're getting approved for a loan with the notion that you're not going to have any debt or very little debt at all. You can pick and choose what you want to do with the equity of your home. You're not forced to sell your home and buy another home. You're not forced to pay taxes as long as you've lived in that home for 2 years or longer. Here's an example. You see, if you own a home, bought a home 5, 7, 10 years ago, you have equity in the house. What you bought it for, then you've paid the mortgage balance down. The home's gone up in value, supply and demand. Homes average 4 to 4.5% increased value on average throughout the years, right? You got $100,000 in equity, let's just say, in your house. You also have $30,000 in debt. Regardless of the debt, you have $30,000 in debt. This is just an example. You also have a vehicle that you owe $20,000 on. That's $50,000 in debt. Well, let's say you got $100,000 in equity. You don't have to pull money out of that house right now. You can go to a lender, get approved, and tell them, hey, I want to get approved with the notion that this debt's going to be paid for with the equity that's in my home at the closing. So what they do is they take the equity, they take the settlement statement, that's called a closing disclosure now, and that closing disclosure will show where your money is going to. And they'll cut you a check for the difference. If you want to buy another home, you can roll all that into another home. You can roll as little as you want or as more as you want into that home. It's just important to know that if you're thinking about moving in the next year, even 2 years, you don't necessarily want to pull the equity out of your home to do anything crazy with it, because you want to make sure that you either have that equity to roll to another home or you have that equity to pay off some debt and roll to another home. So look, as I mentioned, I'm not trying to tell you what to do or talk you into anything, but you just have to look at, if you're paying 22, 24, 25% in credit cards and you're paying 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% on a vehicle loan, I know you may have a 3, 3.25, 3.5. The point is, if you want to move, here's an option, because it's hard to look at 3.5% and you look at financing something on 6.25, 6.5%. You're like, there's no way. So people get locked up and spun out, if you will, and froze, like, there's no way, you're crazy, why would you go from 3.5? The point I'm trying to make, and the people that I'm talking to, is look, if you feel locked in, trapped, can't get out of your home, you want to make a move, you can do that simply by taking your equity and paying off your equity. Now think about this, you don't have any debt other than your mortgage. You've paid off all your debt. That's a free feeling. That is very, very freeing. It's a lot less stress. And oftentimes we have people doing this all across the country every single day of the week. They're doing this and they feel great about it. And here's the reason why, because they don't have any more debt. And their mortgage payment, what they're paying in their new house, because they moved up because they wanted a home with a little land, they wanted a home with a pool, they wanted a home with a little bit of privacy. They wanted a bigger home, they wanted to downsize, they're empty nesters. Bottom line is, 6.5% is still really, really, really good. Just telling you from somebody that's been in this business for 30 years, 6.5%, if you get a fixed rate, is really, really good. However, something that mortgage payments and mortgage lenders and mortgage bankers, they don't tell you, is that you can actually get a discount on your rate if you put it on a 15-year term. So I always tell people, when in doubt, if you can, put your mortgage on a 15-year term. I can't emphasize enough how fast you'll build equity, because you're paying that property down so much faster. The home's going up in value, you're paying down that balance. So always, 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 if you're going to get approved with a lender, tell them and ask them, what would my payment be on a 30-year note at that amount that you just approved me for? What would my payment be on a 15-year note at that amount you just approved me for? Because if you can do the 15 as opposed to a 30, I promise you, you will thank me later. But you know, many people can't do a 15, or they don't want to do a 15 because they just are like, Wayne, I'm strictly commission. I get that. I've done that for 30 years. So I don't know where the peak in the valley, how the economy is going to go. One thing that you can do is pay one extra principal balance payment. So in other words, you can write a separate check, if you will, mail it to the mortgage company and say apply towards principal balance only. A lot of people do that around income tax time. They get a little extra cash and they can send that in. If you pay one extra mortgage payment on your home, it will pay it off. If it's on a 30-year note, for example, 30-year term, if you pay one extra payment per year, you can pay off a 30-year note in 22 years. Listen, I'm Wayne Turner. Hope you've liked this video. Please give me a thumbs up, share it, subscribe it, and if you like this video, you'll enjoy this one as well.